Module 1, Section 5, Objective 10 says to identify and apply the distributive property to multiplication problems. Okay, so we'll work into what the distributive property is. So what you see here is a pan of brownies. Okay, so Gordon and Cynthia made them. They've cut them into squares, or in this case rectangles. Okay, the green ones are frosted and the brown ones are just plain chocolate and unfrosted. So Gordon is saying to find the total number of brownies, he wants to find the total number of rows and columns and multiply them. And then Cynthia has a different idea, but let's stick with Gordon's for a second. So if he wants to find the total number of brownies by rows and columns, we have 3 rows, right? And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 columns. So 3 times 8, he would have 24. That's the equation that represents his thinking. Now Cynthia says that she wants to count the frosted brownies first and the chocolate brownies second, and then add them together. Okay, so if we broke it into 2 different sections now, so we're going to do this section and this section, right? So she wants to do 3 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then add 3 times 2. Okay, which would give her 18 plus 6, which is also 24. So can you see how they both work, right? So you're taking the large rectangle for Gordon, and then you're breaking it into 2 smaller rectangles for Cynthia and adding them up. Makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Okay, let's break Gordon's down one more step so you can see something that's really important here. Okay, so he has 3 rows, but his columns, he has 6 frosted rows and 2 unfrosted rows, right? So this part here in the middle, 6 plus 2, is his 8. So there's the 6 frosted and the 2 unfrosted right here. Okay, so his is 3 times 8, which then is 24. Okay, so if you look at, he did 3 times 6, or she did, and then 3 times 2. Okay, that's called the distributive property when you look at them differently like that, and I'll explain it here on the next row, or next page. So the distributive property, it says to multiply by a sum or difference, multiply the number outside of the parentheses by each term inside the parentheses, then simplify. Blah, 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 blah. Right? Okay, let me write it out so it explains it using the brownies problem. So we had 3 rows no matter what. This is using this top one. So we had, what was it, 6 frosted rows, or frosted columns, and 2 regular ones. And that's going to equal exactly what Cynthia did, which is 3 rows of 6 frosted ones and 3 rows of 2 chocolate ones. Okay, so what you're really doing, and what it says to multiply blah, 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 blah up here, this 3 on the outside multiplies by the 6 and the 2. Since it's in front of the parentheses and you're adding both of them, then you're going to multiply them both separately. Okay, do you have to do it that way? No, but sometimes it makes it a lot easier. Okay, and here's my example. That's it right here. Okay, let me do another one. So let's say I had 4 rows of 5 plus 1. Okay, 5 plus 1 is 6, and 6 times tables, maybe I don't know those, so instead I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to distribute the 4 to the 5, and then the 4 to the 1. So I'm going to go 4 times 5 plus 4 times 1. Okay, 4 times 5 is 20. Let me show you how this works. And 4 times 1 is 4. So 20 plus 4 is 24. On the front part, we get 4 times 6, because 5 plus 1 is 6, which also gives me 24. So it's called an identity when you get the same thing either way you do it, okay? Or property. In this case, it's the distributive property. Okay, here's another visual representation of what the brownie problem was. Okay, and in your packet, the blue square is missing. Okay, so you need to fill in that square. Okay, let me erase the stuff that they put in. Actually, I'm not certain if there's anything that I want to erase or not. Let's just take a look at this. Okay, so the 3 here is that 3. So that basically means we have 3 rows. Okay, now the second section, we know that there are 5 parts to it, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in this section right there, we have 15, and we'll call them brownies because that's what the other one was. And now in this first section, what goes in the blue box in order to get a 6 in this first section? So we're going to have to cut it in half, right? So that we have 6, which means it's a 2 right there. Okay, these diagrams are kind of confusing and I apologize. Okay, so the number in front right here is the number in front here. And now you can see that 7 times 10 is the 70. And the 7 times negative 2, we shouldn't be doing negatives yet, right? Is negative 14. Okay, let's take a look up at the next part. Okay, so the 2 out in front is the 2 out in front here. Okay, so now I'm going to go 2 times 4, which means this one, and I get 8. And now I'm going to go 2 times 8, which would be 16. Okay, and that's all they want you to do is fill in the missing factors or products or whatever. Okay, so the 4 out here in front is this 4 out here in front, right? Okay, so 4 times 9 is right there, and we got 36. 4 times 5 should be right here, and again, I apologize for the negatives, but 4 times 5 is 20. Since it's subtract here, I'm going to put the subtract here. Okay, and yeah, those are kind of confusing. Now looking at them this way is quite a bit better. I don't like all of the confusing boxes inside of boxes and whatever, so here we go. Okay, so the number on the outside needs to distribute to the 2 numbers on the inside. Okay, so 5 needs to multiply by the 6. So we get, let's do, yeah, that's good enough. 5 times 6. And then 5 times 11. And now simplifying both of those into the actual numbers. So 5 times 6 is 30. And 5 times 11 is 55. Add those two together and you get 85. So that might be easier than doing 5 times 17, which is what you would get if you added the parentheses first. It still is 85. It just gives you a different way of doing it. Okay, so let's do the next one. And I'm going to rewrite it down here so I have more space to do my arrows above it. Okay, so the 4 in the front is going to multiply by the 8. Oops, let's actually write it out. So 4 times 8, and then it's going to multiply by the 6, and those are equal. Okay, so 4 times 8 is 32, and 4 times 6 is 24. Add those two together, and you get 56. If I would have done it the regular way, well, when I say regular, that's not using the distributive property. So we get 4 times 14, which is also 56. Okay, now these other two are subtract problems, so that's where we ended up with the negatives in those brownie pen things. Okay, so doing it this way, you don't get confused like that. So let's go ahead and do it, and I'll show you. Okay, so this is, actually I'm going to rewrite it down at the bottom so we have more space. Or off to the side in this case. Alright, so this is going to be equal to 7 times 5 and subtracting 7 times 3. So 7 times 5 is 35, and 7 times 3 is 21, and this time we're subtracting. Okay, and those are still equal. So 35 minus 21 is 14. Okay, and D, again rewriting it so I have more space. So I am going to say 9 times 10, and then subtract 9 times 2. So 9 times 10 is 90, and then I'm subtracting 9 times 2, which is 18, and I don't know that this one's any easier this way, but 92 minus 18 is 72. Okay, double checking, doing it the other way, so parentheses first, this would give us 9 times 8, and we know 9 times 8 is 72. Checking this first one, so parentheses first, we would get 7 times 2, which is what we got, so those checked out.